Tonight a quiet lawn with a famous view has become the noisiest postcode in London. Perksfield, the private stretch behind Kensington Palace long described as the Prince and Princess of Wales's back garden, is set to host a Burberry runway during London Fashion Week. On paper it's another glossy collaboration between heritage and haute couture. In practice it has lit up one of Britain's most affluent streets with complaints about traffic, noise, and litter, and this is the detail that made even seasoned palace watchers blink. Reports say the objectors include not just the local residents' association, but the High Commissioner of India. When neighbours on Billionaires Row and a major diplomatic residence line up on the same side of a planning file, you pay attention. If you're new here, this channel keeps a steady pulse on moments just like this, where tradition meets modern money and the optics matter more than the press release. If that's your speed, tap like and subscribe, so you don't miss the quiet decisions that shape the Windsor story. Let's start with the ground itself. Perksfield looks like a simple expanse of green, but in royal terms it's a hinge. Close enough to be truly private, versatile enough to be useful when the institution needs it. Over the years it has been pressed into service for far more than picnics. Burberry has erected its glass-walled show there before, back in 2015, when the guest list read like a West End marquee, and the runway sat under a temporary greenhouse. The late Queen permitted the country's largest interior design fair, Decorex, to draw more than 11,000 visitors across Perksfield and the Orangery. The site even turned into a landing and refueling zone in a pinch. During the pandemic, at the then Prince of Wales's request, air ambulances used a private lawn at the palace to save precious time. A practical grace note from a former helicopter pilot who has never lost his feel for the value of minutes. So no, this isn't the first time a temporary city has risen on that grass. But timing and tone are everything. Residents say this particular show feels different, bigger footprint, louder kit, heavier traffic on streets that already carry more black SUVs than buses. When your windows look across to palace trees you pay for quiet as much as for postcode. The idea of generators, spotlights, and late-night loadouts rolling past the railings is not the kind of glamour anyone over 50 describes as charming. Add the worry that high-profile events attract high-profile security complications, and you can see why objections landed on the desk at the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. Burberry's line, for its part, is the polite paragraph you'd expect from a house that knows how to read a room. We consulted the royal household, we consulted the Crown Estate where appropriate, we consulted local residents, we'll manage traffic, and the whole operation will be up, down, and scrubbed before you can say final look. And to be fair, fashion weeks are military operations when they're done properly. Timings are drilled, routes are agreed with police, litter contracts read like aircraft checklists. The best shows leave no trace but the photographs. Still, this particular lawn isn't just a venue. It's shorthand. On the map it belongs to the palace complex that most of the world associates with William and Catherine, even though the family's daily life now runs out of Windsor. Kensington remains their London base, their office address, their public doorway in the capital. So when a luxury brand erects a theatre on Perksfield, the headlines don't read, Burberry rents grass. They read, fashion takes over the Wales's back garden. The optics travel faster than the permit. Older viewers will recognize the broader pattern. The Crown's spaces, public and private, are always being asked to do more, earn their keep, tell their story, house their history, and quietly generate the funds that keep stones dry and beams sound. That's the deal the late Queen made with modernity: museums open, gardens ticketed, rooms lent to causes, and occasionally, to commerce that looks dignified enough to pass the grandmother test. There's a line, though, and it's drawn not with a law but with a feeling. When a field starts to feel less like a royal lawn and more like a hireable lot, older eyes narrow. What protects the magic of these places is not just the locks on the gates, it's the sense that they are used with restraint. There's a second layer here that explains the temperature. Kensington is not Balmoral. It's a palace laid directly against ordinary, and very expensive, streets. Every lorry is someone's 5 a.m. wake-up. Every security sweep is a queue at a corner that usually runs free. Most weeks, neighbors accept that as the price of living beside history. But fashion is a different kind of neighbor. It arrives with scaffolding and leaves with headlines. If you're a diplomat trying to conduct a quiet evening, or a retiree who chose that view precisely because it promised quiet order, you can hear the difference between a helicopter clipping in for an emergency and a runway soundtrack rolling over the hedges at rehearsal. None of this is an attack on Burberry, whose patriotic credentials and craftsmanship are not in doubt. The brand knows how to stage a show that photographs Britain in a way investors in New York and buyers in Seoul understand at a glance. Frankly, that's part of why the palace tends to play ball with carefully managed events. It's soft power by other means, global eyeballs on a story that says our heritage is living, not a museum. The question this week is whether the dial has been turned one notch too far for the people who live with the consequences once the last guest vanishes into a black car. What will the Wales household make of it? If you've watched them for any length of time, you already know the answer. They'll keep their names out of it. These disputes live on the borough's desk, not in the court circular. The heir and his wife understand the rule their grandmother perfected. When an argument is really about permits and parking, don't make it about personalities. Their job is to show up the day after and make the palace feel like a home again. Children on a lawn, a garden party with laughter that floats rather than blares, a charity event where the only lights are the kind people hold in their eyes when they feel seen. Older viewers will also remember that Perksfield has earned grace by service as well as by spectacle. Those air ambulances weren't an Instagram moment. They saved fuel and minutes for crews fighting the unforgiving arithmetic of trauma. William's patronage of London's air ambulance grew out of that lived experience. When a space can pivot from runway to refueling pad and back again, it reminds you why these grounds matter in the first place. They are not just decor. They are tools. So where does this leave the row? Somewhere sensible, if everyone keeps their heads. The borough will do what good boroughs do: cap decibel levels, limit lorry routes, enforce curfews, and require a proper sweep at the end. The organizers will do what good organizers do: under-promise, over-deliver, and keep the footprint tighter than the mood boards first dreamed. And the neighbors, who have paid handsomely for the promise of peace, will get what they should have had from the start: a guarantee that the show arrives like a whisper and leaves like one. There's a lesson here that goes beyond one runway. The modern crown survives because it knows how to rent the stage without selling the play. You can lend the garden to a brand once in a while if the brand behaves like a guest, not an owner. You can welcome the industry that employs thousands in this city and still protect the ordinary cadences of a neighborhood. But you cannot forget the deeper truth older hearts know instinctively: mystique is a finite resource. Spend it carefully. If you felt a twinge reading about objections from a diplomatic residence, you were right to. Protocol lives in these margins. Ambassadors are trained to absorb inconvenience. They are not trained to shout about it. When they do, it means the practical has begun to look like the disrespectful. The fact that this reached that threshold should focus minds in every production meeting from now to showtime. For those asking whether Kensington Palace should be used at all for this sort of thing, look at the record with clear eyes. It has hosted a design fair the late Queen approved, a runway the public enjoyed, an Olympic committee in a summer when the nation opened its doors, and emergency helicopters when London needed speed more than ceremony. The wisdom isn't in saying, never again. It's in saying, not at any price. Heritage spaces can sing with the present without drowning out the people who live beside them. In the end, this is a small story with a large echo. It tells you how 21st century royalty navigates a capital that is both neighbor and stage. It tells you why older Londoners bristle at the word activation and relax at the word stewardship. And it reminds you that the most successful royal moments, whether in a village hall with the Princess of Wales or on a castle lawn in Windsor, leave behind nothing but good feeling and a perfectly quiet street. If you value this kind of measured, grown-up royal coverage, calm eyes on the craft, not the noise, make sure you're subscribed. And tell me below, should Perksfield keep hosting the occasional big show, or has the line been crossed? Older ears have the best feel for these balances. I'd like to hear yours.